the top of the hour. And who's our guest tonight, James?
That would be Lon Strickler, and I'm going to tell you, he's going to get into the cryptids.
Oh, Lon is so good. I mean, he's wrote books on the cryptids. He wrote a lot of books about UFOs and aliens. This guy just really, and his books are top-notch, too. Anyway, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. Your host, well, I think your host is me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Smiles like lightning to my soul. Should've known that she was making witchcraft. Should've known that she would steal my soul. She asked me for a dance, then she cast her temptress spell.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
Pretty soon, that's what our weather is going to be like. A lot of thunder. We had some here, James, about a week ago. It was so bad, the windows were just shaking when the thunder was going off. I tell you, it sounded like cannon fire going.
Yeah, we haven't had much rain. Matter of fact, I had to mow the yard last week, but it's getting kind of brown now. I actually seen a couple leaves fall, so maybe fall's getting here finally. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. The Antarctica is doing some weird stuff again. I was reading about that. They're saying it's going to cause us to go into a mini ice stage. And you know what? Also, on the news, it was really, really interesting. They were talking about by 2050, up to 300 million people in the United States are going to lose their homes. You know why they're going to lose their homes?
Why?
They're going to be underwater.
That doesn't surprise me, but I got another gloomy fact, and these are facts. I talk on facts. You know this, Mr. Gary. 40 years ago, we had, and I've been saying this, we've had 3.5 billion. Today, we have twice that. We have over 7 billion people in 40 years. Now, fast forward another 30 years, we're going to have probably estimated 12 billion people, if not more. That is a lot of consumption and a lot of waste and a lot of food, and plus the globalness of warming and all the effects. Yeah, I don't doubt that Florida is going to lose a lot of land, along with bordering Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the southern coastal states. So, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, not just that. They're talking we're going to maybe go into a mini ice age. Now, it won't affect the whole world. It could be over in, I hate to say it, in Europe. Because what's happening, remember I told you, all the glaciers, all this stuff is melting. All that water is running into where? The ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. Now we have that belt coming, from the equator going all the way up to, Europe. And that keeps basically that area from going into an ice age. They're now saying, and haven't I said this before on the show? I predict that's going to happen. And what's going to happen is it could happen any day now. It could stall, and then they could go into a mini ice age. So while they go in a mini ice age over there, we're going to go into a flood situation over here. Another thing that's really got me upset. Now, I don't know if Sam out there has read it, but a couple big companies have been buying up a whole bunch of land in eastern Washington and in Washington. You know why? They want the water rights to it.
Oh, they've been doing that for a while down in California as well.
Yeah, but it's not been here in Washington, and people are really upset because they're buying huge areas where you're talking about where they're probably thinking down the road water is going to be very precious. So if they have control of the drinking water, they can charge whatever they want for water.
We're seeing restrictions on well water here, like out in the mountains, because it's regulated, and they want to get to a point where even on the private wells, they want to meter how much water you're using. You know, if that kind of tells you down the road, they may restrict the amount of gallons of water that you can pull out of the ground, because by and large, they don't really consider that water, even in the well under your ground, as part of your rights.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they do, because they look at underneath that there's rivers, there's great big lakes and areas underground. So then who owns those rights to that? You know, the government? Whatever. What scares me is, you know, some of these companies, like, I won't mention their name because I don't want to be sued, but they're looking down the future where they can just charge whatever they want for bottled water. Just think, if we go into a mini ice age in Europe, but we go into a heat stage over here on this continent, how much could they charge for water per bottle to drink? I mean, look at the population is going to keep expanding, and it won't be enough water to supply the demand, let alone the food. That's another issue I have, guys. Over here in Washington State, there's hardly any farms like it used to be. It's crazy. How are they going to supply all the food? Is it all coming from across the border where we have a wall?
Maybe. Another scenario that a lot of people don't realize with all this flooding, because what happens when it floods like that, you can just go back to Katrina, it floods into your waste area, and then all your waste from your restrooms, all this stuff, it gets into the drinking water. So then you get diseases developing, and you lose your drinking water. And a lot of people don't realize that. So you could literally be up waist deep, what?
Or deeper.
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing that really upsets me more than anything else. It's one thing about water coming from the ground, but when they start passing laws that say you can't even collect rainwater and it's illegal to do so, I really have a problem with that. You want to just dictate what comes from the sky as well. Now, I don't know what the reasoning behind that. I guess they figure that that water is supposed to make its way into the groundwater and supplement it. But I personally have an issue with that.
Well, actually, I knew somebody, a family member, who built a huge swimming pool. I'm talking, this sucker is like a mini lake, out of concrete. And he has, it's near the mountain area, but where he gets a lot of his water? He has a little creek, but the creek would take forever to help fill it. But he saves all his rainwater, gets funneled into this swimming pool. It gets filtered and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, he was told he couldn't do that anymore. He couldn't use the creek anymore to fill up the swimming pool. He couldn't take the rainwater and use that to fill up, because it would take him months to fill this thing up. And he'd empty out once or twice a year and then let it, fill up, because we get a lot of rain in the winter. And he was told he can't do that. A guy recently, about a year ago or two, maybe 2 years ago, went to jail because he was collecting rainwater.
I heard of that. And the thing is, they don't mind you getting water as long as you pay for it. That's the issue.
Well, put it this way, you got a garden. Okay, well, what's wrong with collecting rainwater and using that for your garden to save money? I mean, let's face it, but no, you can't legally do that. You can't use it. What's their reasoning behind it? That water is more pure than what you're probably getting out of the faucet. Well, maybe.
I personally think that I don't think it's everywhere. I think it's just in certain states right now. But, you see the trend of how these laws tend to become micromanagers. In other words, the laws that get passed seem to dictate every little thing. What are they going to do? Put a tax on oxygen next? Or a tax on the air we breathe? We figure you've been taking in this much air in the last week, so we're going to have to tax it. What are they going to do if you don't pay the tax? Cut your air supply or put you in a vacuum or something? I don't know. It's ludicrous, but then again, what's coming down the pike?
I can tell you what's coming down the pike. Chaos, because we can't go on the way it is. We can't support the population. We're barely doing it right now. And think about this. Down the road, when more kids are born, more children are born, and more people are living longer, how are they going to really support the people? Especially if we start going through climate changes, which I think we're just about doing. Art Bell and Whitney were very, very accurate on the book they wrote, The Superstorm. I just think they were off, by maybe 20, 30 years. And I do think it's going to happen. And it's going to happen really fast. I mean, again, in the news today, they're talking about 300 million people by 2050 their homes are going to be underwater. That's a lot of people. Where are you going to put these 300 million people?
That's how many people's in the United States roughly right now.
Well,
so think.
Well, it's more than that in our country. But the thing is, how about the family? There's not just one person living in each house. Where are these people going to go when their house is all of a sudden submerged? I mean, it's scary. I mean, we got a lot of things that's going on. And I think we are close to a mini ice age in Europe. I got a funny feeling that's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen here? Just like you, James, you got the weather we had last year, and now we got the weather and have had it for the last month and a half, what you normally have. It's really, really messed up. And I hear this from a lot of people. I hear it a lot from truckers telling me that a lot of places they're going to, the weather is just totally different than what they're used to.
I got to agree with you. This is the warmest October I've ever experienced in my life here in the Midwest, ever. I mean, we've only had 5 days below 70 and maybe 3 or 4 below 60. Usually the average is usually mid-50s, maybe 30s, 40s at night. But not this year. I mean, we've only had one day. At night it was 35 degrees, and that's been a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, one more day, and then we're into November. So let's see how long you can take it to, in the 60s and down to where you get down to the 50s. I don't know. Sam, haven't you noticed a big change, even where you live? And now I'm not talking about Tacoma. I'm talking up about, the mountain.
Well, in general, it could change in a heartbeat. James, you're experiencing nice warm weather. I could change in a heartbeat. Last year, Gary, you probably well know that, the weather we had up here in January and the first part of February was probably the warmest we've had in a long time. But then it reversed itself and became one of the coldest, one of the snowiest times we've ever seen. And we got slammed up here. I had been up here about 6 years so far. Last winter was the worst winter I've ever seen in my life. And it was preceded by the warmest weather we've ever seen in the entire area, including Seattle, Tacoma area. In December, January, I thought we were going to go through the whole winter with the mildest weather we've ever seen. And it was the complete opposite. So, yes, it could change in a heartbeat, even in Ohio.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember, too, Sam, okay, we had that snow. It hung around for about 2 weeks. And it really because the people around here are not used to driving in snow. But the issue we had, okay, after that went away, then April came. And we had a 91 temperature, fluke, one day, 91 degree temperature. Crazy.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's just weird things is going unstable.